This channel is only possible thanks to direct contributions from viewers like Kronos, Argus, Bleed Red, Christopher Welch, and you. If you'd like to contribute to making more videos like this possible, you can do so for as little as $1 a month on Patreon, or by buying a t-shirt at the merch store. Thanks a bunch, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hey gamers! Last time we left off talking about John, we noted that even though John isn't a perfect person, none of his friends particularly resent him for that. And well, they wouldn't, that's just how friendship works. They all have their own approaches to kindly dealing with John's shortcomings. Rose gently helps nudge him out of it with humor and logic, Jade has faith he'll come around on his own time, and Dave is outright protective of John's innocent and gullible demeanor, going so far as to admit that he treasures and appreciates John's trusting nature, even as he correctly predicts it'll get him personally into trouble, and then immediately ensures he will get hurt protecting John by promising to step in and help should John's gooberish ways ever land him in a jam. On the flip side, just because John doesn't grasp the full nature of his friends' lives doesn't mean that he doesn't understand them at all. When it comes time to be seriously sentimental and insightful into his friends' needs and feelings, John's as caring and attentive as anyone. John's gifts and letters to his friends tend to prove so well attuned to their personalities that they spark dramatic changes for years on end. His 13th birthday present to Jade ends up time traveling back to when she was a toddler, sparking her gardening hobby with the present of pumpkin seeds, and her interest in online friendships with his letter's mention of Rose and Dave, not to mention his own introduction. In this sense, John accidentally starts his own friend group, since he mentions in the same letter that Jade was the one who put them all in contact, presumably as a result of reading it. His present to Rose includes the astute observation that, while Rose's very serious intellectualism and interest in all matters mysterious and occult is very impressive and cool, she could also stand to lighten up a little. He gives her a knitting set in the hopes of starting a less macabre hobby for her, and while she does genuinely take up knitting, she does also end up using the knitting needles as her weapon of choice in multiple timelines, at several points even using them to gouge out her victims' eyes and then ride them down waterfalls using the threads as a harness. She definitely likes the present though, so I guess it's a mixed success? He proves most insightful with Dave, tenderly suggesting in his letter that Dave might actually be as cool as he pretends to be all the time, and that all Dave really needs is to step out from under his bro's shadows and spread his own wings, getting him aviators to replace the angular anime shades he wore in imitation from his bro until he was 13. Dave goes on to prize these shades specifically as a gift from his best bro across multiple lifetimes, expressing relief that reality is simply being torn asunder all around him, when for a second he considers the alternative that his precious shades might have been cracked. John might not know everything about his life or theirs, but as far as his friends are concerned, he's still a pretty great guy. John's subconscious wall scrawlings have a meaner way to call it though. Judging off what John calls himself in his sleep, he considers himself a fool. If we were to read Homestuck through tarot card, the Fool card would actually be an appropriate way to describe John. The Fool card is the start of the tarot, and typically depicts a young adventurer setting off on a new adventure, with that adventure then being described by the rest of the major arcana in the deck. Just like John, the adventurer gazes skyward, free-spirited and consumed by his own thoughts. And just like John, staring upwards means the fool fails to realize that he's walking along the very edge of a cliff, at any moment daring to take a deadly fall down the stairs to the unknown. John is the ultimate self-insert character, meaning that just like any Persona protagonist, he's designed for people to project onto as the most basic character in the cast. And also like Persona heroes, his adventure eventually culminates in him gaining a unique wildcard power that allows him to reshape reality. In his case, the retcon abilities that let him instantaneously teleport anywhere into the Homestuck metaverse. Not just anywhere in his own space and time, but also into the fictions of works contained in the comic, like for example, Con Air. But of course, John isn't thinking about any of that. John's true feelings about the label are only revealed in code throughout the story, as at various points he implies that he resents and hates himself for knowing nothing about what's actually going on, and especially, later into his arc, for having failed to understand his dad well enough to properly appreciate him when he was alive, or to understand reality or his powers well enough to have been able to protect him before he was murdered during the Spurb session. These mistakes and revelations are far in John's future from our perspective, but due to the cyclical nature of Homestuck's timeline, they come back from the future to haunt him preemptively in the form of his own self-hatred. Even once the game starts, it seems to comment on and mock him for the ignorance at the root of his self-loathing. His entry item is an apple, casting him in the role of Adam, about to commit the mistake that will cast him from Eden. And the Land of Wind and Shade, John's home planet in the game, is as dark as it is ominous. In Gnostic myth, the darkness and ignorance are one and the same, just as light and true knowledge or wisdom go hand in hand. So in a sense, John's planet being so dark is just the game reflecting the truth of his relationship to his life up until he entered. John experiences reality from within Plato's Cave of Shadows, never aware that he is only seeing shades of the true picture, or of the nature of the fire that burns on the other side, blazing black ink stick figure versions of everything for his eyes to see. But in line with Homestuck's more Gnostic world building, John's bite of the fruit is also the point where he takes the first step up out of the dark. To quote Nana Sprite, "To ascend, one must first always descend. To understand anything, you have to realize that you're confused in the first place." Soon after entering the game, John's programming aptitude and general skill at computing logic pays off when he figures out the basic foundations for the alchemy system, and soon after starts using it to make more powerful items and weapons for himself. This is a critical innovation that John contributes to the team, and is in fact so impressive that Rose invites him to collaborate with her on her GameFAQs guide for Spurb, asking him to detail the workings of the mechanic personally. All the other kids and every single one of the trolls harassing John go on to benefit from this knowledge, since Rose's GameFAQs guide proves to be one of the foundational documents that lays the groundwork for the trolls' session. Even despite distractions like the meddlesome intrusive thoughts thrust into his brain by the wayward vagabond's command terminal, and learning that his father was kidnapped, John still manages to make relatively quick progress in the game. He attracts the interest of the troll Terezi Pyrope, who convinces him that she's going to help him win the game early. She gets him a map of his planet, giving him a literal marker setting his next objective, and a jetpack letting him fly. Both the goal and the flight are, of course, another instance of John just kind of being given breath, inheriting it in various ways from anyone and everyone in his vicinity. And so John blasts off on a new adventure, heading off to die. And I'd love to talk about why, but we're out of time for this video. So stay tuned for next time, and until then, keep rising. Huge thanks go out to my patrons for making this video possible. If you want to help support the channel and come join us at our awesome and growing Discord community, feel free to join us for as little as $1 a month. You can also find me on the r/Hiveswap Reddit and Discord. That's all for now, so thank you again, and as always, keep rising.